Imagine it's the year 2026, which, I mean, it is. But really picture yourself right now. You've done basically everything right. You've spent the last decade mastering, the most complex programming languages, the most intense distributed systems.
All right, you're a total technical powerhouse.
Exactly. You literally dream in Kubernetes clusters and asynchronous microservices. You can debug this sprawling, entirely undocumented legacy code base with your eyes completely closed.
You're the person everyone goes to when the server crashes.
Yeah. By every single traditional metric we were taught to value, you were the absolute peak. But today, you just lost out on a massive career-defining promotion.
Oh, that hurts.
It really does. And the person who got it, their technical skills are honestly just average. They couldn't optimize a graph database to save their life.
But I'm guessing they have something else.
Right. They run a cross-functional alignment meeting.
Yeah.
Like an absolute maestro. They can diffuse a super tense stakeholder negotiation over feature creep with just one perfectly timed question.
Wow. Yeah, that's the real skill right there.
It is. Why do they get the corner office while you're still staring at your IDE? Because, as we're going to explore today, the traditional tech hierarchy hasn't just shifted a little bit, it has entirely flipped.
It's a complete inversion of, everything we thought we knew about value creation in the tech sector.
Totally. Welcome to episode 13.2026, the ROI of soft skills in hard tech. This is the 13th episode of this year's Bits and Bytes in Business Deep Dive. I'm so excited to get into this.
Same here. It's such a critical topic for anyone navigating their career right now.
Oh, absolutely. Real quick, though, before we jump in, a brief recap about last week's deep dive, episode 12.2026, we covered the Convergence AI Dallas recap.
Oh, right. The major DFW event support discussion. That was fantastic.
Yeah, such a good one. If you haven't listened to that yet, definitely go back and check it out. And hey, while you're at it, please take a second to like, subscribe, and share this podcast.
It really helps us out.
It does. And honestly, it helps you too. Subscribing keeps you connected to these insights that can legitimately change the trajectory of your career. And definitely check out the YouTube channel for access to course materials, videos, and all the other content to stay, on the cutting edge.
Absolutely. So let's dive into today's mission.
Yes.
Yeah.
Today's mission, unpacking this insane recalibration. We're looking at a highly detailed 2026 report called the Socio-Technical Dividend.
Such a great title.
Right. We're going to explore exactly how and why, as generative AI commoditizes those, like hard coding skills, these soft interpersonal skills have unexpectedly become the main drivers of financial ROI in tech.
And, the sheer volume of data we have to work with here is it gives us a very clear picture.
It's not just theories, right?
No, exactly. We aren't just looking at anecdotal management theories or some random HR surveys. This report synthesizes global macroeconomic projections and, honestly, highly granular salary metrics.
Which we all love.
Oh, definitely. We have career progression studies powered by broad LinkedIn datasets, linear regressions analyzing the exact mathematical causes of technical project failures.
Which is wild, by the way. Math for human behavior.
It is, and we even have institutional training ROI studies like the PACE study tracking the literal dollar-for-dollar return on human-centric skill development.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because I want to establish a boundary right out of the gate here. This isn't a deep dive about just being nice at the office.
Right, it's not about singing Kumbaya.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This isn't about team-building exercises or, holding hands around a server rack. We are talking about hard, quantifiable metrics that dictate your future paycheck, your promotion velocity, and whether your specific career actually thrives or just stagnates in an AI-dominated world.
That distinction is so crucial. We are fundamentally moving from viewing interpersonal skills as a nice-to-have organizational lubricant to recognizing them as the actual engine of corporate profitability.
So where do we start? How did we even get here?
Well, to understand the mechanics, we have to start by looking at the scale of the global deficit in 2026. Right now, 85% of employers worldwide report that a skills gap is their primary barrier to business growth.
Wait, 85%?
Yes. 85%.
I mean, I know the tech labor market has always had some friction, but that is basically the entire market screaming that they cannot execute their roadmaps because they lack the right personnel.
It's systemic. It's everywhere. And the economic hemorrhage caused by this gap is structural. Projections indicate that by the end of 2026, this IT skill shortage will cost the global economy $5.5 trillion.
Let's ground that number for you listening, because trillions can easily just kind of wash over us.
It's hard to visualize.
It really is.
Yeah.
That is roughly equivalent to the entire GDP of Japan simply evaporating.
Wow. Yeah, when you put it that way.
Right. Where exactly is all that money going?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't just, vanish into thin air.
No, it manifests as operational friction and massive opportunity cost. If we break the data down regionally, the U.S. is losing about $1.3 trillion annually in productivity.
Just the U.S. alone.
Just the U.S. The European Union is facing a $100 billion annual gap cost. The U.K. is losing $28 billion to unfilled roles and delayed deployments. And India is seeing a 2.5% reduction in its GDP, specifically attributed to these IT talent shortages.
So globally, this is just dragging everything down.
Yeah, this talent paradox acts as a massive anchor. It reduces overall GDP growth by 1.5% annually.
But here is the critical distinction, the real operational pivot of this entire data set. This deficit is not occurring because we lack raw computational power.
Right, it's not a hardware issue.
No, we aren't running out of cloud storage. And it's not even a shortage of people who can physically write code. We have plenty of boot camp grads and, AI tools generating scripts.
We have an abundance of that.
Exactly. The deficit is a lack of professionals who can navigate the social, ethical, and organizational complexities of digital transformation. It's the absence of what the report literally calls the human glue.
The human glue. I love that term. Because that human glue is the mechanism that prevents what researchers are calling innovation stagnation.
Innovation stagnation. What does that actually look like on the ground?
Well, you have these massive enterprise corporations investing billions into cutting-edge technology, right? Machine learning pipelines, automated logistics, edge computing.
Right.
But the technology just sits idle, or honestly, worse, it gets deployed incorrectly. The data shows that for every $1 billion invested in technology, $97 million is completely wasted due to poor project performance.
Almost 100 million bucks just gone.
Exactly. And when you trace the root cause of that wastage, it inevitably leads straight back to the human element.
I was trying to visualize the mechanics of this while reading the report, because a $97 million loss on a $1 billion investment implies a severe, architectural failure.
Yeah, a massive breakdown.
The best analogy I could come up with is this. Imagine a global logistics company decides to completely upgrade its fleet, so they go out and buy 100 state-of-the-art Formula One race cars.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Right. They have the absolute best technical infrastructure money can buy. The aerodynamics represent the cloud architecture, the engine represents the large language models. But then they realize they forgot to hire anyone who actually knows how to drive a manual transmission.
Oh, man. And the breakdown extends further than just the driver, too.
Exactly. Because an F1 car doesn't operate in a vacuum. They didn't hire a pit crew who knows how to communicate with each other during a split-second tire change.
Right, the team dynamics are missing.
Yes. They didn't hire a race strategist who can look at the radar, talk to the driver, and say, hey, the market conditions are changing, it's about to rain, we need to pivot our tire strategy right now.
See, you just have $1 billion worth of flawless machinery sitting there.
Just sitting there. And it's completely useless, maybe even actively dangerous, because the human coordination required to orchestrate it is entirely missing.
I really want to pull on that thread regarding the race strategist. The F1 car itself, the generative AI, the cloud architecture, it has staggering capability.
Unbelievable capability.
But without the strategist who can, read the external environment, negotiate with the engineering team, and actually apply the tool to the specific business context, the car just idles in the garage.
It goes nowhere.
Nowhere. The innovation stagnates because the highly technical teams building the car do not know how to sit down with non-technical stakeholders, accurately gather the business requirements, align competing departmental interests, and foster a unified environment.
Okay, so if companies are bleeding productivity on a macro level because they're missing this human glue, it stands to reason that they must be reallocating their budgets, right?
Oh, absolutely.
On an individual level, they have to be willing to pay an absolute premium to whoever can act as that race strategist. Which brings us to the salary data. And I have to admit, I found the paycheck translation here highly counterintuitive at first.
It is surprising. The compensation data for 2026 shows a very sharp market correction. Historically, interpersonal skills were really undervalued in tech compensation. They were viewed as entirely secondary to engineering prowess.
Oh, it's nice that you can talk to people, but can you code?
Exactly. But now we're seeing aggressive salary premiums for professionals who demonstrate what the industry terms applied expertise.
Applied expertise.
Yeah, which is basically the integration of deep technical knowledge with strategic communication.
Let's look at the baseline first, just to compare. General tech salaries in the U.S. grew by a very modest, like 0.8% to 1.6% year over year.
Which is basically nothing.
Right. That is barely keeping up with inflation, and in some markets, it's actually a pay cut in real terms. But when you look at specialized hybrid roles, the curve goes totally exponential.
It really does.
Graduates from Management Information Systems, or MIS, and Computer Information Systems, CIS programs are pulling a 15% median salary premium over those with just general business degrees.
And seeing that 15% premium really resonates with what we focus on at the Dr. Sampak College of Business at Tarleton State University.
I bet you guys see this firsthand.
We really do. Our programs are explicitly designed for this exact market shift. For example, our BBA in Management Information Systems is this perfect traditional program that balances those hard technical skills with serious business acumen.
Which is exactly what the data is saying the market wants.
Exactly. And the ceiling for these hybrid roles is exceptionally high. We're looking at median annual pay for computer and information systems managers hitting $171,200. And top-tier senior roles in security and architecture are exceeding $213,000.
Okay, hold on. I need to push back on this a little bit because
Right.
we all know the old computer science grind, right?
Yep, sure.
You go to a top-tier program, you spend 4 years basically living in a basement, optimizing algorithms, squeezing milliseconds out of runtime, learning the deepest machine languages.
Yeah.
And historically, you get the highest starting salary, period.
That was the gold standard.
Right. So why are MIS and CIS degrees that traditionally blend business administration with technology suddenly the golden tickets in 2026? Like if I'm a pure CS major listening to this right now, I'm probably feeling a little bit defensive.
I can totally understand that.
Right. Are you saying my deep algorithmic knowledge is losing its value?
It isn't that algorithmic knowledge is valueless. It's just being aggressively commoditized by automation.
Oh, right. AI.
Yeah, AI. A pure computer science track is fundamentally about algorithmic depth. It's about building the tool from scratch. But MIS and CIS curricula, like our BS in Computer Information Systems, are explicitly designed to focus on the intersection of technology and organizational strategy.
It's the application of the tool.
Exactly. We teach students how to evaluate a complex business problem, select the appropriate technical tool from an increasingly crowded market, and then crucially convince a hesitant organization to actually adopt it.
Which is the hardest part.
It is. And for professionals already in the field who need to finish their degree, our BISS in Information Technology at Tarleton does the same thing. It takes their existing training and certifications and layers on that strategic, human-centric focus.
I see. So in a world where an AI agent can write the boilerplate algorithm for you in, 3 seconds? The premium shifts. The market no longer cares about those optimized milliseconds if you can't explain to the CEO why the software actually matters to the bottom line.
Precisely. You are being compensated for your ability to act as the translation layer. And we see this in our graduate students, too, in our Master of Science in Information Systems. We are specifically training them to enter leadership positions in IT by being that translation layer.
That makes so much sense. And if we look closely at the context provided for specific high-earning roles in the report, this becomes super evident.
It really is in the job descriptions.
Yeah. You have AI architects commanding $175,000, AI and machine learning engineers at $170,750, and cybersecurity architects at $167,000.
And look at what's driving those numbers.
Right. Every single one of those premiums is tied to a soft skill requirement in the job description. The AI architect premium is explicitly earmarked for high-level stakeholder negotiation.
Negotiation, not coding.
Exactly. The cybersecurity architect premium is for governance and policy influence.
Because implementing, say, a zero-trust security architecture across a massive enterprise isn't a technical problem.
It's a political problem.
Totally. You have to convince thousands of employees to change their daily habits. You have to influence human behavior.
Yeah, even roles like product marketing analyst and customer success manager are seeing 13% to 14% increases, specifically because of their ability to manage product market fit and client retention in this highly volatile tech landscape.
But the data point that really caught my attention here, the one that really stands out, is what the report calls the AI fluency multiplier.
Oh, yeah, the 18% bump.
Yes, professionals who integrate AI tools into their workflows are earning an 18% salary bump over their peers.
Now, initially, I read that and thought, okay, cool, so I need to go learn how to code AI.
Let me stop you right there because the data actually contradicts that assumption entirely.
Wait, really?
Really. That 18% premium is not for the ability to write the neural network. It is entirely about judgment and orchestration. Yes. It's the ability to use AI to draft documentation, analyze massive data sets, automate routine workflows, coupled with the critical thinking to know exactly when the AI is hallucinating.
Which happens a lot.
All the time. Or knowing when its output introduces legal liability or when it requires human override.
So it's the judgment to know when to trust the machine and when to trust your own gut.
Exactly.
And that kind of nuanced judgment is a quintessential soft skill. You literally cannot write a Python script for human intuition or ethical boundaries.
You can't.
But earning this premium isn't just about the skills you possess in your head. The data reveals a highly geographical component to this, which I found fascinating.
Yes, the geographical data represents a very stark reversal from the remote work trends we saw earlier in the decade.
Everyone thought offices were dead.
Right. But despite the seamless technological infrastructure supporting remote and asynchronous work, 2026 has seen a dramatic return to what economists are calling collaborative hubs.
And the numbers back that up aggressively. Salary growth is 10% higher in New York City. Washington, D.C. and Atlanta are seeing 6% growth. And my personal favorite statistic? Data analysts in Seattle are seeing an unbelievable 29% premium above the national median.
29%.
Like, if I'm a data analyst, my entire job exists in the cloud. Why on earth do I need to be in Seattle to do it?
It comes down to what they call the cost of proximity. Employers have realized through very hard operational data that while you can, write code perfectly well from an isolated cabin in the woods.
Which sounds lovely, honestly.
Right. But high-stakes innovation and alignment rarely happen in isolation. Employers are literally stretching their compensation budgets by up to 52% specifically to secure candidates physically located in these hubs.
So they are paying a premium for the bandwidth of face-to-face communication.
I absolutely are.
Let's walk through the mechanics of that, because I think everyone listening has felt this. Imagine you are leading a multi-million-dollar software pivot for a major corporation. You're on a video call with 20 different stakeholders.
We've all been there.
Marketing, legal, engineering, finance. Half of them have their cameras off. Someone's audio's lagging. You present the new, highly controversial strategy and silence.
You have absolutely zero telemetry on the room.
Zero. Are they thinking deeply? Are they furious? Did their connection drop? Now imagine that exact same meeting in a boardroom in Seattle.
Totally different vibe.
Completely. You can read the micro-expressions. You can see the CFO cross her arms and lean back. You can see the lead developer lean in with sudden interest.
Right.
You can sense the hesitation in the room, pivot your argument on the fly to address those unspoken concerns. And most importantly, you can build trust organically over a coffee immediately after the meeting.
That soft power is simply impossible to replicate digitally. The complexity of modern technical projects requires high-stakes collaboration, rapid consensus building, and organic mentorship.
Which requires trust.
It requires deep trust. And trust is built orders of magnitude faster in person. That 52% budget stretch, that is a company saying, we will pay top dollar for the human friction that generates creative solutions and prevents project derailment.
Okay, so let's say you're in the right room, in the right city, armed with this perfect hybrid of technical understanding and interpersonal fluency.
You've made it.
You've secured the job and the premium paycheck. What happens next? How does this actually impact your trajectory once you're inside the organization?
This is where we examine the career progression data, and we see the compounding effect of these skills over time. A broad LinkedIn analysis tracking career trajectories into 2026 reveals that workers who consistently combine hard and soft skills are promoted 8% faster than their technical-only peers.
8% faster. And the velocity changes depending on the specific behavioral skills you exhibit.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
If an employee demonstrates verified strengths in teamwork, problem-solving, and communication, their promotion velocity increases by 11%. And if they demonstrate pure leadership skills like managing cross-functional teams, it speeds up by 10%. We see this supercharged in the MIS sector specifically. The report notes that approximately 40% of management information systems professionals reach a leadership position within just 5 years of graduation.
5 years is absolute light speed in enterprise tech.
It really is. And it traces directly back to the curriculum's focus on translation. Because these professionals are trained to translate complex technical constraints into clear business value, they enter the workforce already speaking the language of the executive team.
That is such a huge advantage.
Hiring managers in 2026 explicitly stated that they consider this translation ability to be equal to, if not more important than, pure technical proficiency when considering internal promotions.
There was one specific behavioral phenomenon in this section of the report that I found incredibly revealing. They termed it quarterly momentum.
Oh, yes. The quarterly momentum effect is a fascinating study in organizational psychology. The data shows that professionals who update their internal company profiles or external networks, like LinkedIn, with new skills on a quarterly basis are promoted 11% faster than those who update annually.
But the crucial insight is what they are adding, right?
Yes. They aren't just adding React or AWS every 3 months. They are adding behavioral skills like conflict resolution, adaptability, or cross-functional leadership.
Okay, I have to be honest, I was highly skeptical of this at first. Isn't that just gaming the corporate algorithm? Does adding conflict resolution to your LinkedIn actually make you better at it?
Well, it's not necessarily about the absolute mastery of the skill at the exact moment of the update. It's about the perception of continuous behavioral adaptation.
Okay, right.
In an environment where technology shifts under our feet every few months, organizations desperately crave adaptability. By publicly signaling to your management team that you are actively working on your human skills, you literally make yourself 11% more promotable.
You are demonstrating that you aren't a static asset resistant to change. You are an evolving professional.
You are building organizational trust.
Which leads us to the dark side of that trust. Because the report identifies this invisible barrier that separates those who plateau from those who reach the executive level. They draw this brilliant distinction between technical debt and communication debt.
This is perhaps one of the most vital operational concepts to emerge in recent years. Technical debt is a known, manageable quantity in software development.
Right. For you listening, let's break down the anatomy of technical debt first. It's when you take a deliberate shortcut in your code to meet a sprint deadline, fully knowing you'll have to go back and fix it later.
It's a calculated risk.
My analogy for technical debt is that it's like discovering a leaky pipe under your sink. It's annoying. It might cause a localized mess if you ignore it too long. But the solution is highly straightforward.
Right.
You hire a plumber or a senior developer to come in, open up the wall, and refactor the code. It is a localized, bounded problem with a strictly technical solution.
But communication debt operates on an entirely different systemic level.
Exactly. If technical debt is a leaky pipe, communication debt is like building your entire house on a sinkhole.
That's a terrifying image.
It is. Let's trace how a sinkhole forms in a tech company. Day one. A product manager writes a vague JIRA ticket and doesn't verbally confirm the requirements with the engineering team.
We've all seen this happen.
The back-end developer, rather than asking for clarification and risking looking difficult, just assumes what the PM meant and builds the API. Day 15. The front-end team tries to connect to the API and realizes the data structure is completely incompatible with the user interface. Day 30. The product launch is delayed by a month.
And the debt compounds. The product manager blames the backend developer for not following the ticket. The developer resents the PM for writing poor requirements.
Day 60. The lead backend engineer just flat out quits because they are tired of being blamed for systemic dysfunction. That is communication debt.
You cannot just patch it.
No. It creates a toxic culture of blame and siloed information that spreads throughout the entire organization. It entirely kills multi-million-dollar projects, and worst of all, it drives your most talented people out the door. You cannot hire a senior developer to refactor a toxic culture.
Which is precisely why the 2026 market is aggressively elevating a new archetype of professional, the experience architect.
The experience architect.
Yes. This individual does not just manage the code base or the sprint backlog. They orchestrate the entire experiential journey of the project. They navigate the organization-wide politics. They manage the competing egos of different department heads. They foresee the communication sinkholes. And they clear the roadblocks before they form.
So how do we actually measure the success of an experience architect when the rubber meets the road? Because up until this point, we've focused heavily on personal career benefits, higher paychecks and faster promotions.
Right.
But if I'm a CEO, how does this impact the actual day-to-day operations and the bottom line of my business?
Well, we can measure it mathematically. And this is where the 2026 data becomes truly undeniable. Academic researchers didn't just look at vibes or feelings. They built complex linear regression models to isolate exactly how human behaviors impact project outcomes.
Specifically measuring budget adherence, deadline reliability, and software quality control.
Exactly.
I have the core regression formula right here, and I really want to walk through it carefully because seeing human behavior reduced to an algebraic equation is wild to me.
It is pretty unique.
Okay, the formula is Project success equals 3.938 plus 0.183 times leadership plus 1190 times communication plus 0.013 times teamwork.
Let's translate what those coefficients actually mean for the listener in a practical sense. In a regression model, the higher the coefficient multiplier attached to a variable, the stronger the predictive impact that specific variable has on the final outcome.
Right, so if you increase your team's teamwork score by 1 unit, the overall project success metric goes up by a marginal 0.013. If you increase leadership by 1 unit, success jumps significantly by 0.183. But look at communication.
That's the big one.
For every 1 unit increase in communication proficiency, project success jumps by 0.190 units.
That coefficient makes communication the single most statistically significant human predictor of technical project success in the entire model.
The math literally proves it.
It proves that the ability to talk to each other clearly, empathetically, and accurately is more vital to delivering software on time and under budget than almost any other variable measured.
But I want to know how it prevents failure. When communication fails, the math gets incredibly dark. The data highlights that 37% of all failed cases studied and 35% of all IT failures globally are caused by one specific bottleneck.
Poor requirements gathering.
Yes, poor requirements gathering.
Requirements gathering is the ultimate stress test of communication debt.
Yeah.
It is not just writing down what a client says they want on a notepad. It requires active listening, domain empathy, and honestly, the courage to push back. It's sitting with a stakeholder who says, I want a new distributed database, and having the emotional intelligence and business acumen to ask, why do you think you need a new database? What is the actual friction your users are experiencing?
Because if they say, oh, our users are abandoning their shopping carts because the page takes 3 seconds to load, and you just blindly build them a massive new Snowflake architecture without asking why.
You're solving the wrong problem.
Exactly. You might miss the fact that the slow load time was actually caused by unoptimized images on the front end. You just built a $5 million back-end solution for a front-end problem.
Building the wrong thing perfectly is still a catastrophic failure.
It really is. And the cost of building the wrong thing scales terribly. The report shows that organizations waste 12% of their investment due to poor project performance.
That's $120,000 incinerated for every single million spent.
It's gone. When you look at large-scale enterprise IT projects, so budgets over $15 million when soft skills are deficient on the team, those projects run an average of 45% over budget, 7% over their deadlines, and they deliver 56% less value than originally predicted in the ROI model.
56% less value.
Half. You spent $22 million on a project budgeted for $15 million, it shipped late, and it only solves half the problems it was supposed to solve.
Yeah.
All because the technical team couldn't effectively listen to what the stakeholders actually needed.
It's staggering. On the flip side, though, when teams do possess these experienced architects, we see the phenomenon the researchers call collaborative velocity.
Collaborative velocity, I like that.
It's a highly accurate measure of R&D productivity. High-performing teams, those that prioritize psychological safety, clear requirements gathering, and cross-functional collaboration, are mathematically 3.5 times more effective than their lower-performing peers.
And what does 3.5 times more effective look like on a calendar? It translates to finishing projects 20% to 30% faster.
Let's ground that in market reality for a second. If you are a mid-market tech company and your team finishes a vital new software product in Q2 instead of Q4 because they didn't have to spend 6 months rewriting misunderstood requirements, you hit the market 6 months before your competitors.
Which is huge.
In 2026, a 6-month lead doesn't just save development costs, it determines total market dominance. It is the literal difference between becoming the industry standard and becoming a footnote.
This operational reality raises a profound question, though.
What's that?
Well, if human communication, empathy, and listening are so mathematically vital to saving millions of dollars and capturing market share, and given how exponentially rapidly generative AI is advancing in 2026, why isn't AI just taking over the communication part too?
That is the existential question for anyone working in tech right now.
Because logically, you would assume that if an LLM can write perfectly grammatical, highly nuanced emails, synthesize an hour-long meeting into bullet points, and generate stakeholder presentations, it could effectively replace the human communicator.
It seems like it should, but the data reveals we are actually living in what the report calls the AI
The
paradox.
AI
It's a
paradox.
counterintuitive economic principle. It states that the more automation and artificial intelligence we introduce into a complex system, the more valuable human judgment and interpersonal skills become.
The report breaks this down by analyzing tasks based on their AI transformation potential, basically quantifying how likely it is that an AI agent can execute this job entirely without a human. Routine data entry. Over 90% transformation potential. It's effectively obsolescent.
Right.
Basic coding, scripting, and QA testing. Over 70% potential. Those foundational technical roles are highly exposed to automation.
But then you analyze tasks rooted in complex empathy, organizational leadership, and intellectual curiosity. Those tasks have only a 10% potential for AI transformation.
Only 13%.
This establishes what labor economists are calling a safe harbor in the 2026 job market. Soft skills are the safe harbor. As the underlying technology becomes infinitely complex and self-generating, the business environment becomes radically more volatile.
Which requires humans.
Exactly. Navigating that level of volatility requires human skills to anchor the technology, align it with corporate strategy, and remain adaptive to unpredictable human needs.
I want to highlight a specific statistic here that is, frankly, terrifying if you have built your entire identity around being a pure technical specialist.
The shelf life stat.
Yes. The labor data reveals that in 2026, technical AI skills have a shelf life of only about 2 years.
They expire and become obsolete twice as fast as traditional technical skills used to just a decade ago.
So wait, are you telling me that if I spend the next 6 months doing an exhausting deep dive, learning the absolute cutting-edge syntax and architecture of a brand new proprietary AI model, that entire body of knowledge will be functionally useless in 24 months?
If we look at the broader trajectory of the industry, yes. Over-indexing entirely on transient technical syntax is a much riskier investment now.
Because AI is evolving so rapidly that the syntax, the APIs, and the deployment tools constantly cannibalize themselves.
Exactly. The AI handles the volume. It handles the brute force generation of 10,000 lines of code or the rapid synthesis of 1,000,000 data points. But humans dictate the value of the outcome.
Volume versus value. Let's dig into that distinction because I think it's the absolute crux of the AI paradox.
Volume is cheap in 2026. Anyone can generate a massive volume of code or content, but value is rare. And this is exactly why the C-suite is currently obsessed with the concept of ethical judgment.
Ethical judgment.
Yes, leaders are now required to play a central, heavily scrutinized role in shaping the partnership between human workers and autonomous AI agents. An AI model can generate 100 different strategic recommendations for optimizing a supply chain in a millisecond, but the AI cannot take fiduciary or moral responsibility for those recommendations.
Right. It takes a human leader, someone with deep ethical judgment and organizational awareness, to review those 100 recommendations, interpret them through the lens of the company's core values, identify which ones might inadvertently introduce bias or violate compliance regulations.
Ensure the chosen path actually builds trust with the consumer base.
Yes. And then guide a human team to execute it responsibly.
You cannot outsource accountability to an algorithm. When an automated system makes a critical error that damages a brand or breaches user privacy, the board of directors doesn't fire the AI model.
No, they don't.
They fire the human executive who trusted the AI without applying critical contextual judgment.
So if these soft skills, this ethical judgment, this communication proficiency, this ability to lead through volatility, are the ultimate future-proofing tools, if they are the only reliable way to survive the brutal 2-year expiration date of hard tech skills.
It makes perfect sense that mega corporations aren't just desperately looking to hire for these skills.
Right. They are spending absolute fortunes to train their existing workforces in them.
Which brings us to the final piece of the macroeconomic puzzle. We have definitively moved away from looking at soft skills training as a fluffy, HR-driven cost center, something companies did purely for compliance or to superficially boost morale.
The pizza party mentality.
Exactly. The most successful organizations in 2026 view it as a hardened strategic asset that drives immense, measurable institutional ROI.
And the definitive proof of that is the PACE, the Personal Advancement and Career Enhancement Study. This has become the absolute gold standard for proving two things. One, that soft skills can actually be systematically taught, and two, that teaching them literally prints money.
It's incredible data.
The study methodology tracked a specific group of technical workers who underwent highly targeted soft skills training, comparing them against a control group. The results: a 7.4% immediate increase in worker productivity, with overall gains 13.5% higher than the control group who didn't receive the intervention.
But the financial return, the actual dollar-for-dollar ROI, is the headline metric that caught the attention of every CFO in the industry. 8 months post-training, the participating organizations saw an incredible 256% return on their investment.
Let me put real operational dollars to that percentage so you can feel the impact. A company spent $102,000 to put their engineering managers through a rigorous soft skills training program. 8 months later, the tangible, audited benefits measured through increased developmental productivity, a reduction in critical errors, and significantly faster project completion times were valued at $360,000.
That is a corporate money printing machine. You put in $100,000, you get back well over $250,000 in less than a year.
And we must emphasize that this isn't some isolated cherry-picked study. Broader corporate data from 2026 reinforces this dynamic at a massive scale.
It really does. Companies that possess mature, well-funded learning and development, or L&D programs, see 218% higher income per employee than companies that neglect formalized human-centric training. They also see a 21% jump in total profit margins.
218% higher income per employee. That is the literal definition of scaling impact. But a huge portion of this financial savings isn't just about people working faster or avoiding errors. It's about stopping the bleeding.
Yes.
It's about people not quitting. The report detailed an incredible case study on attrition mitigation that I want to walk through.
Attrition is the silent killer of technical roadmaps.
Absolutely. So there was a major, highly profitable analytics firm that was simply bleeding top-tier talent. They had a 31% annual attrition rate.
Wow.
Almost a third of their entire engineering and analytics workforce was walking out the door every single year.
The operational cost of a 31% turnover rate is staggering when you factor in the cost of recruiting, the months of onboarding required for complex systems, and the devastating loss of undocumented institutional knowledge.
So how did they fix a 31% bleed? They didn't arbitrarily increase baseline salaries across the board. They didn't offer more remote work days or install kombucha taps in the break room.
No.
They implemented rigorous, targeted soft skills training specifically for their IT managers. They taught their deeply technical managers how to actively listen, how to empathize with burnout, how to communicate performance expectations clearly without micromanaging, and how to resolve interpersonal conflicts before they escalated.
And the result?
Within 18 months, that 31% attrition rate plummeted to 19%. They saved millions of dollars simply by teaching their management layer how not to create a toxic environment.
This represents a profound operational insight for leadership. In the highly competitive, incredibly tight talent market of 2026, the absolute cheapest and most efficient way to acquire top-tier talent is simply not to lose the talent you already have.
Exactly.
When companies utilize internal predictive analytics to target soft skills interventions, stepping in with coaching or training before a high-performing team burns out or a critical project derails, they save an average of $30,000 per instance in replacement and delay costs.
It's preventative medicine for corporate culture. And the financial ROI is undeniably massive. So we've covered a vast amount of ground today. We've explored the $5.5 trillion global deficit, the explosive premiums in individual paychecks, the unexpected resurgence of geographical collaboration hubs,
the mathematical linear regressions of project failure, and the massive institutional ROI of human training.
Let's synthesize all of this for you, the listener. Let's bring all these disparate data points into a single, cohesive reality.
The overarching narrative that any professional must accept in 2026 is that the era of hard tech, being defined purely by technical prowess and algorithmic optimization, is officially dead. The $5.5 trillion global economic deficit is the tombstone of that era.
Your technical skills, your ability to code, to design cloud architecture, to manage complex data pipelines, those are your entry ticket. You absolutely still need them to get into the building and pass the technical screen.
Absolutely.
But your soft skills, your ability to translate complex logic into clear business value, to gather requirements through empathetic and active listening, and to lead cross-functional, highly opinionated teams, those are your mechanisms for scaling your impact and capturing the value you create.
For you, as a professional attempting to navigate this highly volatile landscape, hybridity is your financial resilience. Your ability to operate as that experienced architect, the strategist who bridges the widening gap between the autonomous machine and the complex human organization, is precisely what will secure you that 15% to 18% salary premium.
It is exactly what will propel you into organizational leadership, 8% to 11% faster than your purely technical peers.
And always remember this core truth of the AI paradox. While your hard-earned technical certifications and syntax mastery might expire in just 2 years, your human-centered capabilities will appreciate in value over a lifetime. They are the 13% safe harbor that generative AI cannot touch, cannot replicate, and cannot commoditize.
So as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over as you look at your own career trajectory. If we know mathematically that continuous behavioral adaptation is the key to surviving and thriving in the AI revolution, what is the one soft skill you haven't consciously updated or practiced since high school that might be secretly putting a concrete ceiling on your career right now?
Is it how you handle professional conflict when you know you are technically right but organizationally outvoted? Is it your capacity for active, egoless listening during requirements gathering? It is deeply worth exploring your own blind spots because as the 2026 data definitively proves, that is where your true market value lies. And honestly, if you are genuinely motivated to take that next step and build these hybrid skills, I highly encourage you to explore the programs at the Dr. Sam Pack College of Business at Tarleton State University.
Yes.
It's an incredible investment for anyone looking for a program that perfectly blends flexibility, practical learning, and truly future-focused career preparation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the socio-technical dividend. And be sure to tune in next week for episode 14.2026, Applied Data Mining. Until next time, keep adapting to the landscape, keep learning the mechanisms behind the machine, and keep building those human bridges.